Hey everyone, I'm Kevin. I'm going to be presenting a THS talk. I don't have the answer to where the love is, but I do know the answer to what everyday racism is. All right, we're going to start with that. Awesome. So everyday racism comes in the form of subtle, commonplace instances of discrimination, such as being ignored, ridiculed, or treated differently. These incidents may seem innocent and small, but they build up over time. 1,000 cuts, man. But cumulatively can have a powerful impact on a person's or group's mental state of health. Everyday racism is not about racist, but it's about racist practice, which promotes racism as a common societal behavior. You don't need to be a neo-Nazi or a KKK member, but you do have to say something that has racist implications. Oftentimes, these microaggressions consist of people, services, or systems that leave a minority feeling that they have been racially judged or categorized in a covert or deniable way. In an overtly racist act, the target is linked to a negative value judgment or stereotype. It is openly derogatory and insulting and demeaning. It's not nice. Everyday racism builds on that same kind of sentiment, but the act is practiced openly, and the racism is covert. As a cover story, an alibi, it has a nice cape to hide under. When someone is challenged on an act of everyday racism, the person who says something that is deemed everyday racism can say, "You're imagining it, it's not a big deal, you should chill." But at the end of the day, you shouldn't chill, because it's a sign of something greater. Next. Why does everyday racism happen? Look at all these happy people. They look like they're having a great time. But everyday racism is found at nearly every level of society. Racism in general means that members of the dominant racial or ethnic group automatically favor members of their own group, not simply because they want to be with their own people, but that deep down they believe that their worldview, their perspective, and group's culture is better, more human, superior than that of others. When dominated groups themselves internalize the belief of their dominant oppressors, that their oppressors' cultures are superior, the oppressed become agents of everyday racism. Now, how does this all connect together? Well, expressions of racism in particular situations are related by three strands of everyday racism. There's the marginalization of those identified as different, the problematization of other cultures and identities, and the symbolic or physical repression of resistance through humiliation or violence. Accusations of oversensitivity about discrimination, continuous ethnic jokes, ridicule in front of others, patronizing behavior, rudeness, and other attempts to humiliate and intimidate can all have the effect of discouraging action against discrimination. Everyday racism is an evolution of racism, one that is manifested under pressure from changing societal norms. It's not cool to be a racist, guys, but it is all right to have some type of everyday racism just flow into conversation and just be. Next. What it means in THS. At THS, we're really lucky to have a pretty diverse and open community. But there are always going to be lapses and gaps in our understanding and familiarity, which will always prevent us from truly understanding someone who's different or someone outside of you or someone who's even inside of our group. Our acknowledgement of our relative diversity should never, ever leave us blind to more hidden forms of bigotry and discrimination / everyday racism. One of the biggest problems with everyday racism is the colorblind person. When someone says, "Oh, I'm colorblind to something," that completely clouds out the immense importance that race gives to someone. Someone who is colorblind does not see the full situation. In order for someone to fully combat racism, they must be responsible to acknowledge someone's race and everything that comes with that. Next. Well, what does this mean in the future? High schoolers, I'm in college, I'm an adult, I'm going to college. So I'm going to get a job soon, and at that work, what will my race mean? What will someone else's race mean? At work, the accumulation of seemingly petty experiences of disrespect, humiliations, rejections, blocked opportunities, and hostilities symbolically signifies that beautiful glass ceiling, that terrible thing that will block upward mobility, hope in a career or job. Everyday racism adapts to the culture, norms, and values of a society as it operates through the prevalent structures of power in a society. The more status or authority involved, the greater the damage, the greater the risk resulting from common sense prejudice statements and discriminatory behavior. When members of a parliament or a government make discriminatory statements or sanction discriminatory policies in the course of their normal everyday duties, the safety and civil rights of minorities are at stake. When teachers do the same thing to their minority children, the future generations of minorities are at stake. Even in the medical field, when health should be a priority, race still plays a factor. It has long been known that blacks, Hispanics, and other minorities receive lower quality health care than whites do. Disparity generally attributed to lower incomes, adequate insurance coverage, and lack of doctors. But one study said that despite when minorities have the same incomes, insurance coverage, and medical conditions as whites, they still receive notably poorer care. Basically, biases, prejudices, negative racial stereotypes, everyday racism will always mislead people in their work. As THS students, I want each of you to understand how everyday racism can play a part in your life. It's up to each of you to understand the patterns of racism that can appear in your life and how you can confront those patterns. I can't solve racism. If I did, I don't know if I'd be in school right now. I'd be doing important things in the world. But right now, I just want you to understand that these things happen, and if you want to make a change, you just have to identify them and talk. Just be aware that sometimes you might say something that may seem different to you than it is to someone else, and that noticing that change is the most important thing you can do. Next. So I just have some examples. So like, there's if you're someone who's like ethnically ambiguous, you say, oh, like what are you? Someone who's Asian, so can you see as much as white people? Because of your eyes. Next. So you don't act like a normal black person, When standing next to my mom, why is your daughter so white? All these comments, what they do is they reveal further racial undercurrents and just a bad way to deal with people and understanding people. Yeah, and these are my questions. How did this presentation make you think about racism in your own life? How did this presentation impact your thoughts about the roles of victims and initiator? What can you and the THS community do to improve the problem of racism? All right, do that thing with the THS talks. God bless.